Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress. Before we get into today's topic, I wanted to tell you about a brand new resource that will be available coming in December. This is a digital course that will cover everything you need to know about starting your own bridal alterations business. So we'll first start with just the conception of the business idea. What do you want to have your business look like and feel like? We're going to put that on paper. And next, you'll learn how to develop your business launch. So how to have that successful launch, build up the buzz, bring in the clients. And finally, you'll learn how to curate a sustainable plan that balances your home life with your business life and how to pay the bills in between. So I'm so excited for this resource because I know there's this new generation of bridal seamstresses that are stepping up to the plate, and I want to make sure that you have everything you need to create a legal, legitimate bridal alterations business. So maybe right now you're like taking some bridal sewing on the side, or you're kind of dabbling in it. Maybe you've always been interested in this industry. This course is for you because you're going to learn all the steps. We have 12 modules that cover everything you need to know to think through the game plan, put it into motion, make sure you're not skipping any steps along the way, and it'll be fun. So I know 12 modules sound like a lot, but it will be a lot of fun. So that is coming for you in December. I will have more details as the course becomes available, but be sharing that information with your sewing friends because if they're looking for guidance to get this ball rolling, this is for them. All right, let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. We're talking all about first impressions. We know that first impressions matter because our clients are in this generation of like visual stimulus, right? Like we have like 6 or 7 seconds to grab their attention and then they move on to the next thing. Thank you, social media, for that. So we're going to talk about 3 facets of your business where we can fine-tune those first impressions so we can grab the attention of our clients, get our message across in a really short amount of time because that's all we have. So we're going to first talk about our website. We're going to consider our communication style and initial communications with our brides. And then finally, consider that first fitting and what first impressions we're putting out there when we actually meet the clients face to face. All right, so I know talking about our website is kind of like opening this Pandora's box because there's so many facets to designing your website, updating it, what information needs to be on the website, all the things. And that has been a podcast episode in the past in and of itself. We've had several website trainings within our membership. So there are so many different areas to focus on. But I'm going to try to keep this pretty vague because I want you to be able to walk away with a clear to-do list instead of feeling like overwhelmed and scared. Okay. So first impressions within your website. Let's talk about what to consider as your clients are just checking out bridal seamstresses in your area. They're looking through different websites. What are some things that are important to include on your website for those first impressions? So number 1, I always encourage people to have their location like literally on the homepage. As soon as you get to your website, where are you located? Who do you serve? And why do you love serving them? But have your location like first and foremost on that web page. I don't know how many times I've seen websites. I've done like website audits or I've checked out websites for clients and it's like, where are you located? I know that you're located in whatever, Kansas, Topeka, Kansas, but like nobody else would, we just kind of assume that people who are coming on our website are from our area and already like know where we are. So we don't have to include that information. That is the pivotal information. It's critical, okay? Where are you located? Who are you? And who do you love to serve? So that should be like primary information. The next thing to consider on your website is usability. So sometimes when we're working on our website and we're like kind of stuck in this like black hole of like refreshing the website pages or, changing the colors or refreshing our menu or putting in new testimonials or new photos, we kind of lose sight of how usable our website actually is because we're so in it. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I have been there and it is a scary place to be. Where it's like, you're just working on this thing for days and then you're like, where am I? You gotta take a step back and see, is this thing even usable? Do you have a drop menu? Do you have like tabs that your clients can click on easily? I've seen websites where it's just kind of like this constant scroll, and your clients will need to just keep scrolling down, down, down until they get to the testimonials page or they get to your inquiry page. So make sure you have an easily usable menu, drop menu. A great way to prove this is to have like a friend or family members check out your website and go through the steps as if they're a stranger and give you some honest feedback. And I know that sometimes is not fun, but having somebody else that's not you, who has not been staring at the screen forever, check out your website. And also if you've had the same website for years, which I know I have, I try to update it regularly, but I just am so used to it that I would benefit from having somebody like an outsider checking out the website and being like, oh, this was kind of tricky to navigate, or like, I wish you had more of this kind of information on your website. So have an outsider check it out as an objective, non-client, but non-you pair of eyes to check out the website, okay? So I know for me personally, one thing that I have to work on when it comes to like the outsider's perspective is I need to update my photos and my testimonials, because I don't remember the last time I updated that. And that's one of those things that, okay, I'm so used to looking at, and I remember how long it took me to put those in, so I don't want to replace them because I can think of the time it's going to take to do that. But when I think of my clients as newbies with their objective point of view, they're like, okay, the last time, what? Has she not had brides since 2020? Like, why is this the last updated photo? Or like, all of these brides kind of look the same. Sadly, I noticed that as well. Like, a majority of my brides on my website are like a size 6 brunette. So I'm like, okay, I gotta make some changes. That is happening this month now that I have a little bit of downtime. Like, I gotta get on that. So it's kind of like taking that bird's eye view, stepping back and looking at your website as if you've never seen it before. And if you need help, get somebody else to give you that objective point of view. And I didn't intend to do that. It just was like, oh, those are the brides who gave me the most recent photos. Last time I was updating my website, they gave me these testimonials, so I plugged them in. And I'm like, okay, I've worked on a lot of different body types, a lot of different dress types, and I need to include all of that on the website and not just say like, oh, I only serve size 6 brunettes. So please don't go to Sweet Francis Sew & Co. and check that out until I update that. Yikes. But that is just something to consider, is including these dress styles that you've worked on and the different body types that you serve. So when brides are coming to your website, they know that like, oh, they can serve me too. Okay, I'm welcome here. And again, I know it's not something that's intentional, but it could be just like, those are the testimonials that you receive and those are the most current photos that you have. So you plug them in, and we're just not taking a step back to be like, oh, this is kind of what I'm unintentionally putting out there, So make sure that your website is representing all the different dress styles and dress sizes that you've worked with, okay? Another thing to consider as you're looking at your first impressions for your website is consider if it's client focused or is it you focused. Ooh, and this is a tough one, because there are many long about me pages that I've read where I'm like, wow, we keep going and going and going and going and going about all the things that you love to sew and how long you've been sewing and why you're such a great seamstress. And yes, there is that point where it's like, you do want to explain, like, I've been doing this long enough that your dress can be in my care, but also consider that your bride is looking for like information for themselves. They're looking for help for their own issue. They don't really want to know all the amazing things that you can do. You know what I'm saying? There is that balance, but consider like when you are looking for a service, are you like, let's pretend that you are, looking for a new plumber, and you're finding like that their website has all this information about like why the plumber loves plumbing and what their favorite kind of toilet is and like what drew them into plumbing to begin with, and and it's like, okay, but that's not my issue. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of comes, sometimes our about me pages can be super long-winded, and even the way that we describe our services can be very like us centric, and our clients aren't looking for information about us really. They're looking for information about what we can do for them. So even in your about page, or as you're talking about what you know how to do. Make sure that's always leaning towards how it's going to help your client. Like, how does that translate to the bride? Like, how do your skills translate to your bride's experience, or maybe your own personal experience as a bride, or your own, your knowledge as a seamstress? How is that going to help your client? You know what I'm saying? So just take a step back. Okay, is this really about me? Is my about me page too much about me, or is it also about my client? Because when we have just a few seconds to get their attention, they're going to get bored reading all about like, oh, I've been sewing with grandma for as long as I can remember, and I love making aprons and whatever. It's like, okay, how is this going to help me? You know what I mean? So have that section. Really, all of your copy should be client centric, but that's kind of a tricky page. And most of the time, your about me page is going to be like next to the homepage. So it's like homepage, about me, testimonials, da da da. So if that's like the second thing people are reading, it better be about them, because that's what our clients are looking for, information to help them. It's the hard truth, but somebody's got to say it. Okay, think about that part of your first impression. And then finally, you want to make sure that your website is attracting your ideal client. So if you really want to be working with brides who have a heart for like secondhand dresses, or these nonprofit bridal shops that they sell donated dresses, and they'll give a portion of the sales to a local charity, that's really big here in the Pacific Northwest. So you can include that in your copy. If you really want to attract those kind of brides, make sure that your website is acknowledging that you love to work with these kind of, gown reinventions, or taking secondhand dresses and reinventing them for the bride's body or whatever. If you really love gown redesigns, or taking grandma's dress and recreating it for the bride, make sure that is a highlight of your website, not just an additional service. But if that's truly like the client that you want to attract, how is that woven into your copy and in your photos, your testimonials throughout your website, not just a single item in your drop-down menu? Does that make sense? So the more clear that you can be of who you are trying to attract, the specific bride that you're trying to work with, the more you're going to be grabbing that bride's emotions, because you're speaking directly to them, as opposed to like this big, I'll sew for anybody and I love sewing all kinds of dresses and whatever event you want to dress up for. The more specific that we can be with our copy, the more specific of a client that will be reaching out to us and feeling like, oh my goodness, she totally does what I'm looking for. So having that being a theme throughout your website, as opposed to like just a specific additional service that you provide, will go far. So for me personally, I don't do a lot of dress reinventions. That's not what lights me up. So I have it as like an additional service, but it's definitely not like a focus of my website. The focus is, I want to make you feel beautiful with everyday alterations, with everyday bridal alterations. With your standard bridal alterations. Don't give me your jeans. I don't want everyday wear. But you know what I'm saying? I'm not putting a lot of emphasis on that dress reinvention piece, because that's not what I really want to do. And my top referring stores, they're not secondhand stores. So that's not really where my copy is trying to go towards. Like, I'm not trying to reach brides who purchase from those stores, because those just aren't my main feeders, and that's fine. So I'm leaning into what I enjoy and what I already love doing, and I hope that that's apparent throughout the website. All right, moving on to your initial communication. So your bride has filled out the inquiry form, and now it's time to kind of start that email communication. So actually the communication starts before the email. It is the inquiry form. So this is kind of like a segue between like website and the communication. Your inquiry form should say more than, when's your wedding date and what do you want me to do with your dress, right? It should, the more details that you can get from that inquiry form, the better. If you can have photos sent in immediately, that's even a bigger perk. But you want to use this opportunity to get to know your bride, so that when you respond with your first email, it's a personal and professional response. So in my own inquiry form, I have obviously questions about the wedding day, the venue, the wedding dress. What does the bride love about the wedding dress? What are they hoping to achieve through alterations? And then I have a couple questions. I say, is there a part of your body that makes you feel confident? And then is there a part of your body that makes you feel maybe self-aware? And this is a great opportunity for brides to tell me like what their self-conscious about before they come into my space. And honestly, before we even start like emailing. So a lot of times in these forms, I'll read things like, oh yeah, I have uneven hips, or I've had a partial mastectomy, or I have scoliosis, like these things that, okay, it's kind of like a safe place to put these answers in. So then that gives me the knowledge when I'm responding to the bride, like I know what is on the back of her mind even before she steps in my shop and as we start this communication together, right? So there's this combination between warmth and competence that we want to combine in our email responses. So the competence part, yeah, we want to sound like we know what we're doing. Have a professional response. You can have, even if you don't have an automated system set up, you can still have a draft, like an email draft that you just copy and paste to reply to all these inquiries. If you don't want to invest in an automated system yet, that's totally fine. So have this professional draft ready to go, and that's your competence piece, right? You're explaining like, I'm so excited to work with you. This is what you can expect. The next step is whatever your process is. But the warmth comes from pulling from that inquiry form and including a piece of that in your initial communication. So I'll always say something like, oh, thank you for submitting your inquiry. I always love October weddings, or that venue is so beautiful, or I really love that dress designer, or something. And I say that specific, like I really enjoy working with Allure bridal gowns, or something like that, so that they know, hey, I've read your form and I paid attention, and this is a little detail that I remembered. And what's so funny is I get feedback about that from brides. I'll get responses like, thank you so much for your nice email. I love that you remembered my venue, or something. Like, I think when we're working with brides who are putting out feelers with all of these other vendors, the ones that like lean into the details, I think are the ones that stick out to them. And that would be the case with me. Like if I'm going back to my plumber, if my plumber is making I don't know what he would say about my toilet or whatever, but I don't know why I had to use plumber as my example. Like, why couldn't I come with like any other service provider? But anyway, the specifics, we can't help, like we feel like, oh, that's a connection, and building that connection, especially in something as like intimate as bridal alterations, that goes a long way. So having that combination of warmth and competence with that initial email conversation is going to go a long way, especially when we consider that our brides are getting these responses from so many different vendors in every category that they're going to get lost. Like they're hearing from the caterers and the photographers, and they're all getting these like kind of canned responses that people, pre-type and preset. So having just that little bit of personality in the email, I think goes a really long way. All right. So they've found the website. They were blown away with amazing first impressions from your website. They contacted you. They're like, wow, they're so warm and they're so competent. They're so professional. I want to work with them. So then your bride shows up for the first fitting. And I actually have an episode that talks more about like the specifics of your fittings and adding sparkle to fittings. So that's like a totally different topic. I won't get too much into detail about all the fun things you can include in your fittings. We'll just talk about that first impression, okay? So first impression, when a bride walks in the door, what does it smell like? I can't help it. Like the smell of things. Think about the 5 senses, okay? Not just the smell. Does it smell good? Does it look clean? Does it sound peaceful, right? Before I had my storefront and I hosted my fittings in my home, and I know it was like such a production because you had to have the counters cleared off, and like the living room had to be tidy, and like I couldn't cook bacon the night before, like all of these things to prepare for the fitting. Like it's a really big deal. And so the visual, you're thinking your bride is walking in and they're like, can I leave my dress in here? Like, is it going to be clean? So that's that visual component. Obviously the smell is a big thing, especially if you're like me. I don't know. I feel like my sense of smell is like borderline superpower in a bad way, because I get like it's just a thing. Okay, so light a candle, get a little melt going if you can, make sure it smells nice, have some nice mood music set. I started asking brides what song they walk down the aisle to. I love that. I think that just says so much about a bride too. And then I put together a playlist of like the walking down the aisle songs, and that is oftentimes my playlist. So it's just like soft and welcoming. But in addition to all of these like senses, our eye contact is so powerful. It's like these nonverbal cues that we don't realize we need until we don't have them, right? So when I know that a bride's coming, when I hear them open the door, I try to like stand up and initially like meet their eye. Hi, oh my goodness, I say their name. Hi, Morgan. I'm so glad to finally meet you. They know that I've been anticipating them. I'm looking at them. We are connecting, and I am like welcoming them into my space. I hate when I'm like in the back room and they come early, or like I'm around the corner and then it's like, oh, hi. It's like, I feel like it's just off, right? And also when I make eye contact, I feel like I'm kind of establishing myself as like, this is my shop and I know what I'm doing and I'm really glad that you're here, and you're establishing that authority within the first second. And it's like I said, sometimes it's nonverbal. It's just your body language. It's how you're approaching them. It's how you're smiling at them, making eye contact. And those first seconds do matter, right? So think about just that first impression as they walk in the door. What does it smell like? Is it clean? Is it tidy? Are you there to welcome them? What does that feel like for them, right? And especially if we're working out of our homes, this can be tricky to take that step back and feel like, okay, what is it like walking into my house? I don't know, because I do it every day. What does it smell like? I don't know, because I do it every day. And even when I walk into my shop, it's so funny. My husband is definitely, like, we're both tidy, but my husband is like definitely really into cleaning and really into vacuum lines. And so sometimes he'll like come in my shop and he'll be like, how, like, you need to clean this place up. Like, he just sees like the thread and like the fabric. And to put things in perspective, when we had our first apartment, one of the bedrooms was like my sewing room, and I had like shelves of fabric, and this is when I was really into like quilting fabric, so all the pretty colors, and I wanted everything like on display so I could see all the things and I could pull the fabric, or sometimes I would just like touch the fabric and then walk away, not do anything, just looking at the colors. And so I feel like my shop is kind of the same way. Like, I know where the stuff is, and it's like tidy, but it's just the stuff is out. And Duran is like, not into that. So I got to think, okay, maybe I have some brides who are like maybe freaked out by, seeing a dress that I'm working on in pieces. Things like that to consider that are so normal for us. We got to take a step back, tidy up a little bit, put the cut up dresses in the back or whatever so they're not on display to freak out the brides, right? So think about that objective point of view, just like we were talking about our website, taking the step back, having somebody else come in and tell us what the space smells like or looks like before a bride comes in. But those first few seconds with your bride is, I feel like, so important. So take that time to prepare ahead. And like I said, I don't want to go too much into that episode of adding sparkle to your fittings, but even things like, I always have like a little place card for my brides. So they come in, there's a little table with a water, and then the place card has their name on it. I know some of you do the whole letterboard thing with the black felt and the white letters, and I'm so impressed that you intentionally set aside time to do that, because I'm sure that is so special for your brides. But I just have a little place card, and then I tuck it in their bridal bag, so the next time they come, the place card is ready to go. But at least that tells them, hey, I've been looking forward to this and I'm ready for you, and all the things, because they're nervous, they're feeling a little anxious to drop their dress off. And so covering all your bases for that first impression, I think will go a long way. Another story, when I was working from home, I will never forget this, and now I'm like, okay, note to self, wipe off your counters. Our kitchen counter was kind of by the front door, and so this is a while ago because I was still taking checks, and I don't take checks anymore. So that was, I don't know what year it was, but somebody was trying to write a check on my kitchen counter, and it was a marble counter, so you couldn't really see if there were like crumbs or whatever. And she was like, oh, it's kind of sticky. And I was like, I wanted to die because I had this dirty counter. I thought I covered all my bases and I was cleaning up the place, and then she has to lean on my counter. It's sticky. I don't even know what it was sticky from. So that was gross. But thinking about those little details, because those little things, I don't know if she went home and told anybody that, yeah, my bridal seamstress has sticky kitchen counters, so I hope my dress doesn't get dirty. I don't know. Like, we don't know the things that they walk away after that first impression, like, dwelling on. So if there's anything in our control that we can spruce up, clean up a little bit, I think it's totally worth it. So think about the surface areas and what are they listening to when they first come in, and what is the ambiance when they first walk in, right? And of course, how are you greeting them? Are you ready to welcome them into the magical fitting space? So there are so many other facets of your business that we can dive into and consider first impressions. And I'd love to, if you have other ideas, you can DM me or you can post something in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. But I'd love to hear back from you. And are any of these topics, whether it's your website or your social media or even your communication, your first fittings, any of these things that you have considered like, oh, I kind of got to spruce up my first impressions? Let me know, because I love hearing back from you. All right. Well, I hope you have a great week. I hope for most of you, this is the beginning of maybe your slowdown season for those of you who are in the Northern Hemisphere, I guess. And as always, I'm so glad that you're here. So I look forward to connecting with you again next week. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. And if you're feeling really generous, leave a review. Thanks, everyone.